The global food supply is facing vast challenges: uneven distribution of food, climate change, food loss and waste, malnutrition and obesity. With a growing population, we must collaborate to ensure a reliable supply of sustainable, safe, high-quality food to consumers all over the world, both now and in the future. Somewhere in the world, there's the perfect food business partner for you. A partner who can help grow your business in the global food arena. A business area characterized by enormous growth. It's highly likely that your future food business partner will come from Denmark. Even though our own agricultural area is relatively modest, Danish food production feeds 3 times our own population. Denmark is one of the market leaders in both primary and processed food production, food equipment and ingredients industry, know-how and research. Doing business with the Danish food cluster, you become a part of tomorrow's opportunities and solutions. In Denmark, successful researchers, entrepreneurs and food producers are already future-bound when it comes to their knowledge of resource efficiency, sustainability and innovation. Let's collaborate across nations to convert the global challenges into opportunities. Food Nation is a public-private partnership established by the Danish government and leading private organizations and companies working as a gateway for international stakeholders seeking information about Danish food solutions. Join the Danish food cluster as a business partner or build a career in a field where you will contribute to creating change and discovering better solutions of tomorrow.
Welcome to Food Nation's Global Food Talk, Gastronomy as a driver to initiate sustainable food system change. The aim with our series of Global Food Talks is to address how the world ensures safe and healthy food for everyone in a sustainable way. My name is Lise Valbom, and I'm the CEO of Food Nation, a public-private partnership, and we work on presenting strongholds from the whole value chain. And I've been looking very much forward to welcome all of you to this live streaming from Food Nation's Visitor Center here in Copenhagen. I would like to start with a warm welcome to Mr. Rasmus Prehn, Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, and also our speakers here today in our studio, and of course all of you joining us from all over the world. We are very pleased that today we can welcome people from Poland to Kenya and also from India to Thailand. Today's talk is held as part of the Copenhagen Cooking Food Festival, and I am very happy to welcome all of you. We need to talk about the challenging times that we find ourselves in right now. It's 6 months ago since the war in Ukraine began, and we see the effect on the unstable supply chains. At the same time, we are in the middle of a crisis with climate challenges that that really have shown their teeth over the summer. We have experienced heat waves, fires and drought in many different areas, many different parts of the world. The global food system is affected by this serious situation, and therefore new dynamics are needed to sustainably transform our food system. Today we will talk about how sustainable gastronomy can be a lever to provide safe and also healthy and responsible consumption and production of agriculture and food products. We believe that by curious conversations and ambitious meetings, we can progress with the green transition. In Denmark, we have a holistic approach to gastronomy. For us, it is much more than fine dining. For us, it is a focus on gastronomy as a tool to ensure better food for more people. So let's take a quick look at the gastronomic scene in Denmark and how cooperation increasingly creates innovation and product development between industry and gastronomy.
In Denmark, we have a very particular approach to food. It all started with an idea, the new Nordic Food Manifesto, cooked up by some of the greatest chefs in the Nordic region. An idea of embracing the seasons and our nature, of exploring our gardens, oceans, rooftops, harnessing while preserving and innovating our traditional pantry, with sustainability and animal welfare always at the forefront, all in the name of high quality and magnificent taste. New Nordic cuisine has transformed the way we think about food. It's been the guiding star in collaborations between chefs and the food industry, helping develop new products and solutions that motivate us to eat healthily and sustainably. And not least, has brought innovative and inspirational goods straight from food producers to the dining table, in both gourmet restaurants and at home, all over the globe. Proving that great tasting food can be both healthy and sustainable, all at once.
So with this introduction, let's talk. And let today's Global Food Talk inspire all of us to take action and move towards the next important steps where we can create efficient and sustainable food production all over the world. Our speakers today are Minister for Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, Rasmus Prehn. We have with us William Drew, Director of Content, World's 50 Best Restaurants, Melina Shannon-DiPietro, Executive Director at the Mette Academy. Also, we have Claus Meyer, Danish entrepreneur, chef, and affiliated professor at the Technology University of Denmark. Mette Schacht, Vice President, Global Marketing and Consumer Experiences from Danish Crown. Matt Orlando, chef and owner at Restaurant Amass. And also Fredrik Nilsson, CEO at LAKRIDS by BÜLOW. So this is a powerful guest with deep insights into the national and global agriculture and food systems, and with high ambitions, not least, to creating change for a more sustainable future. With these words, I will give the floor to the Minister of Food, Agriculture and Fisheries, Mr. Rasmus Prehn, who will open this Global Food Talk. The floor is yours, Minister. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Welcome to Global Food Talk. Welcome to Copenhagen. In Denmark, we have a saying some of you may have heard. You are what you eat. However, I would like to change it into the climate becomes what you eat. Why? Because we can no longer ignore the fact that our way of eating have an impact on the climate. We know it affects our bodies, our health, our way of living, and we know that it influences society. But it is no longer up for discussion that our food and food systems also have an enormous impact on the climate. This is something we need to talk more about, so let us start today. Because we can do something about it. We can change into a new, more sustainable and responsible way of looking at gastronomy. We need to support people's interest and desire to eat more climate friendly. We need to make changes so the agri-food sector will be more willing to develop, produce and prepare more sustainable food options. I want to make and see these changes, not only in Denmark, but all over the world. And I believe Denmark has a lot to offer in this matter. Like any other country, we value gastronomy. We like to make dinner to our families and friends. We love to eat it even more. Most of us enjoy the hours of cooking in the kitchen to experience the seasonal change of vegetables, fruits and such. Not only do we value gastronomy, we develop gastronomy. Denmark has one of the best gastronomy sectors in the world. We have some of the best restaurants and chefs on the planet. In July, the Danish restaurant Geranium was named the best restaurant in the world, in addition to 28 Danish restaurants that were awarded Michelin stars. I am proud of the way we take the lead, but it makes me even more proud to see how we take an additional responsibility in order to make gastronomy more sustainable. And innovative entrepreneurship has always been key when it comes to the Danish gastro sector. I am sure the increasing awareness of sustainable and climate-friendly food in the gastronomy will be a driver which will affect the entire value chain in the agri-food sector. And the Danish agri-food sector is committed to develop, prepare and market more climate-friendly foods. In Denmark, companies have already developed solutions and approaches to a green transition of the agri-food sector. An example is upcycling of spent grains from breweries to protein and fiber-rich ingredients, which can also be used in food and snack products. We have also seen leftover breads turned into delicious ice cream, which are sold in retail stores all over Denmark. I am very proud to see all the innovative and sustainable entrepreneurship on the gastronomical scene in Denmark. But we can do so much more if we inspire each other, learn from each other, help each other, if we work together. I cannot think of a better forum than Copenhagen Cooking Festival to ensure that. It is my hope that we use this opportunity to take new additional steps in order to make our food systems even more sustainable. So we all across countries can use my new saying, the climate becomes what we eat. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Rasmus Prehn, for your motivating speech and ambitious for the future. And your new saying, we will have to see how we can implement that. And also for highlighting how sustainability in the gastronomic sector is highly important and one of the parts in creating change towards sustainable food systems. Thank you very much. So now we will move on, and I would like to give the word to William Drew, who has come all the way from London to be with us today. William Drew is the Director of Content of World's 50 Best Restaurants, and William has been a journalist and editor for 2 decades, spanning business to business and consumer magazine, as well as national newspapers. So William is a former editor of style magazine Arena and continues to write and comment on food and restaurants in international media. Welcome, William. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lisa, for the kind introduction. But many of you may well be asking yourselves, what is this guy doing here, talking to us about food systems and how we can feed the world more healthily, more sustainably, and more effectively? Because surely the world's 50 best is just an organization producing this seemingly random, often controversial list of super high-end restaurants for elite diners. But having created lists of restaurants around the world for fully 20 years now, we've earned the opportunity to do more than simply produce a ranking and then shout about that to the world. So at the same time, we've built a platform, aided by the fact that our various lists are now established, high profile, and even credible. And that platform manifests itself through our own live events or live streams like this, through digital communication on social media, articles on our website, videos on Instagram and YouTube and so forth, as well as through the wider media in general. So by being more than just a list maker, we can help strengthen that link between gastronomy and the broader food world. We can not only put relevant individuals on a stage, but we can amplify their voices. We can turn them up to 11 so that the world might hear what they have to say. Because any hope of transforming the world's food production systems requires many ideas from different fields of expertise. But one of those fields is gastronomy, because the world's leading chefs can and often do challenge mainstream thinking, and even more importantly, they have the ability to shift perceptions and influence key decision makers. The best chefs are also storytellers, whether verbally or through their dishes, and by telling stories, they give food meaning beyond its basic nutritional value. But does this actually happen? Can these visionary, artist-like chefs who lead expensive tasting menu restaurants actually relate to the real world? A world that includes widespread hunger, the erosion of the environment, obesity epidemics, worker exploitation, injustice, inequality, and more. Well, let's take a quick look at some real-world examples where we see gastronomy demonstrating that it can not only take positive steps forward, but inspire others, whether individuals, organizations, or society, to change as well. So first, let's travel to South America and to the Andes in particular on our virtual global tour. We're climbing up from the Peruvian capital Lima to the Sacred Valley near the world-famous Machu Picchu. And this is the cradle of the Inca civilization, but it's also where chefs Pierre Leon and Virgilio Martinez have founded one of the world's most remote and extraordinary restaurants, Meal, as well as an increasingly influential research project, Mata Iniciativa. Now, many of you may know Pierre and Virgilio from their globally renowned restaurants in Lima, Coye and Central. And Pierre Leon was named the world's best female chef in 2021, and Central was recently ranked number 2 in the world's 50 best restaurants 2022. But it's up there in the altitude of the cloud forest that their most important work is carried out, work that informs everything they do in their restaurants and way beyond. The scope of their research is enormous, but in essence, they are investigating, cataloguing, cooking, and promoting the properties of indigenous produce from one of the planet's most biodiverse regions. And these properties can be nutritional, medicinal, or even artisanal. Their work also allows traditional farmers to earn a living wage from the fruits of their labor. Beyond that, the Mata Iniciativa team is introducing a new level of traceability for products, whereby you consider all elements of the journey the product or ingredient must take before it arrives on your plate. And only this way can one judge whether it is nourishing in the socio-economic sense as well as for the diner. As Martinez describes it, if we don't see all these details, there is no way we can talk about fair trade or balance. We have to consider the resources implicated in the process. Now that's kind of obvious, but it's never actually been consistently calculated as part of the equation. These people are changing that, and potentially therefore changing the world small step by small step. There are numerous other chefs carrying out similarly vital work in South America alone, from Rodolfo Guzman in Chile, Manu Bufora in Brazil, to Leonor Espinosa in Colombia. Next, let's jump over to Asia. And now we're in Bangkok, Thailand, where I have the pleasure to introduce you to a young man called Darath Humchanglong, known as Tot. Tot is both an innovator and a reinventor who's at the forefront of sustainability in the cocktail space. He was working at the acclaimed Thai restaurant Bo Lan as its environmental manager, a restaurant job title we're going to see much more of in the coming years. From there, he launched the Wasteland Project. He created cocktails and non-alcoholic drinks using waste ingredients and byproducts from the restaurant's kitchen. This has now evolved into a drinks label of its own, and Tot has become an activist and educator spreading the zero waste message to students, researchers, farmers and chefs across Asia and the world. And he calls his drinks an environmental message in a bottle. Tot is also part of the 50 Next group. Now, 50 Next is an initiative created by 50 Best, the organisation behind the world's 50 best restaurants and the world's 50 best bars. And 50 Next seeks out, recognises and celebrates 50 young people each year who are working in the wider food and drink ecosystem and who we believe are helping shape the future of gastronomy. And we provide them with a platform to accelerate that process. Now let's quickly return to Europe and down to the south of Spain. There you'll find a chef called Ángel León, who has a restaurant near Cadiz called A Poniente, and has just won the Sustainable Restaurant Award at the world's 50 best restaurants. Ángel León asks you this: would you eat a tarte tatin, but with puff pastry made from fish scales, where the apples are replaced with seaweed, and with the sweetness in the dessert coming from the extraction of glucose from an aquatic plant? Now, our French friends might have a minor fit at this suggestion, but Ángel León thinks that you should try it and that you might be surprised by how delicious it is. Chef León's larder is under the sea, not just in terms of fish, but also in terms of the plant species that he sees as a hidden treasure trove of food with which to feed the planet. So on the most basic level, he encourages all of us to broaden our minds to eat different fish species, citing the 30,000 tons of fish discarded every day in Europe alone, primarily because we've been conditioned to eat certain species only: salmon, tuna, cod, etc. But on a deeper level, he is a diver as well as a chef, after all, he is finding and developing brand new ingredients, or new to us at least. In 2018, he discovered a marine grain, or sea rice, which is the product of an aquatic seagrass called Zostera marina. Now, this cereal, a bit like quinoa in texture, is high in amino acids and vitamins with great nutritional value. And Chef León is cultivating that. He says, and I quote, "To be able to grow cereals in the sea would be a paradigm shift. I understand that the world is not yet ready for this and that it might take a long time to see it through. But I think that in 10 or 12 years, we will see the seas full of grains." So while the restaurant A Poniente is his gastronomic showground, Ángel León's mission is not only to uncover a new world of food, but also to re-educate us all, to encourage us to look beneath the surface of the sea in our quest for a more sustainable food production system. So I've briefly mentioned three very different examples of ways in which individuals from the seemingly higher echelons of the gastronomic world can influence food and drink professionals as well as consumers, and ultimately help shape the future of our food systems. There are, of course, many, many more such cases, including the work done by Massimo Bottura, Dan Barber, Selassie Adedika, Rasmus Prehn, Will Goldfarb, Tim Rao, Dominique Crane, and many more. And in fact, there's a straightforward example quite close to where I'm standing right now, here in Copenhagen. Just over 5 weeks ago in London, Geranium was named the world's best restaurant, sponsored by San Pellegrino and Aquapana. But it's also the first meat-free restaurant to have achieved such a prestigious accolade. And that is telling because it sends a message to the world, namely that meat does not have to be an essential part of a truly memorable gastronomic experience. It starts to normalize the idea that we, in the developed world, can cut down our voracious meat consumption. And by doing so, Rasmus Prehn and his team are not saying that meat is bad per se, but they are leading a wider changing in attitudes. They are further encouraging a societal shift in thinking. Because if the trickle down starts from the very peak of the gastronomic mountain, from the world's best restaurant, then that trickle has more of a chance of turning into a stream, a river, maybe even a rushing waterfall of change. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, William, for this inspiring speech, and not least for taking us around the globe It was really interesting to meet these highly inspiring entrepreneurs that you told us all about. So, William, this is certainly the change that we need. And I noticed your focus on the way we need to look at our habits in a new way. So maybe just to finalize your participation here today, if you should kind of give a word to other people who would like to take action and participate in creating this change, what should they do tomorrow?
I think, without sounding too obvious, what they need to do is keep an open mind, because all of us, one way or another, have been conditioned in certain ways of what we eat, what we like to eat, and what we're open to eating. A lot of that comes from how we've grown up, the society we've grown up with. We have to just challenge that and challenge ourselves to think differently and to stay open-minded about what we might eat, because it may be very different from what we ate when we were growing up, because that was the norm. But we need to be open to doing that. The more people are open to doing that, rather than immediately being defensive about something new, the more we're open to that, then that can help drive a wider change in society's habits and eating habits. And that, of course, feeds through into the food production system as a whole.
So we need to be brave and open-minded. Yeah. Thank you very much for being with us, William. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So now we will move on, and I'm really pleased that with us today we have Melina Shannon-DiPietro, who is Executive Director of Mette Academy. Mette is a not-for-profit organization founded by René Redzepi from Noma. And Mette is transforming our food system by inspiring and empowering chefs, servers, and eaters to create sustainable change in their local communities. Melina began her career as a co-founder of the Yale Sustainable Food Project, a program dedicated to transforming the food system at Yale and giving students the capacity to affect meaningful change in food systems. So, Melina, thank you for being with us here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Lisa, thank you. It's a kind introduction. I want to thank the minister, my fellow speakers, and of course Food Nation and its audience. I wish that I could speak to each of you in person, but it's a real honor to be with you today. I want to start by asking a simple question. What do you think when you see this group of people? Accomplished chefs, a dinner reservation, someplace to go next time you have an occasion to celebrate? Or this photo? Do you feel relief that someone is feeding the kids today? With both groups, I see potential. This group, everyone working in hospitality, whether they work in Michelin-starred restaurants or school canteens, has a special superpower. They have the potential to innovate, to collaborate, and build the resilient food systems of the future. Our mission at MAD is to galvanize people working in hospitality so a transformational shift can occur. We've begun a journey to demonstrate the possibilities. And I hope by the end of this conversation, you'll be with me in appreciating what hospitality can do to change the game. At MAD, we are making a case for radical hospitality. And it's the vision and the privilege to share with you today, that I have the privilege to share with you today. So our core belief is that people working in hospitality can accelerate sustainable change if equipped with the necessary knowledge, tools, inspiration. It's the reason we launched the Mette Academy in 2019, just 30 months ago, with both public and private support. We are investing in social capital and human capital in our industry to help create the foundation for change. We transform food systems through the people who work in food. We are capacity building for sustainable development. So how do we do this? First, we've got to change the narrative about what's possible for hospitality. We need to change the mandate of everyone working in hospitality businesses and in public canteens. What if Gastronomy were synonymous with being an incubator of knowledge and experimentation. Could a restaurant or a canteen be a research lab of social good? And could the people who work in hospitality be crusaders for a better future? I get it might sound like a stretch, but there's a cast of characters I want to introduce you to because they're doing it. It's exactly what Chef Douglas McMaster has accomplished with Silo. You'll hear about it from Matt Orlando in just a bit. So let me tell you about Doug. He is one of our visiting faculty members at Matt Academy. Silo in London is known for being famous for being the world's first zero waste restaurant. It was started because someone asked Doug a provocative question. What if there were a restaurant without a trash bin? What would that mean for waste? And from that question, great ideas were born. A system for closed-loop cooking that elegantly incorporates waste back onto the menu, innovative partnerships, a fermentation process that turns fish guts, normally considered waste, into a tasty liquid gold. And Doug's profit margins and staff retention are the envy of fine dining. So 10 years after opening Silo, Doug teaches these concepts to the hospitality professionals attending MAD's environmental program. Not because we expect them to mimic exactly what Doug is doing, but because the power of that mindset shift is so profound. He's done what people said couldn't be done. So what if there were a restaurant without a trash bin? What if everyone in hospitality dared to reimagine the structures that no longer serve us? Confronting out-of-date, expired mindsets or practices and policies that no longer serve us is the first step towards transformational change. Then we build skills. I tend to think there's a choir that wants to sing, but the choir doesn't yet know the words to the song. And that's what we want to change at Matt Academy. The next important part of our framework is that we believe knowledge is for action, typically collaborative, collective action. The 5-day intensive courses in Copenhagen supply knowledge and inspiration, practical tools and skills for people in hospitality around the globe. We don't tell them precisely how to create a better food system for all. We know the world doesn't yet have all the answers, and we need to work together to create them. We expect, in fact, the solutions are going to be as diverse as the restaurants and canteens our students come from. The solutions are going to be jigsaw piece puzzles, jagged edges, curvy lines, one a little bit different from the other, but suited to the food system and community it's part of. So we challenge participants to find their own solutions and then spread what they've learned throughout their own workplaces and their communities. One person becomes 3 people, becomes 5 people. Multiply a single person's catalytic impact over teams and over customers and over years of working in an industry. What does it look like in practice? It means a server comes back from the academy and engages a head chef in a dialogue about pulling back meat consumption on a menu. It might be a restaurant manager from Southern California or from Spain goes home and fixes 2 leaky faucets and installs low-flow aerators to save gallons and gallons of water in an arid climate. It could look like the leader of a kitchen bringing back tools for communication, for handling conflict, and creating a safe workplace. Ultimately, Matt Academy teaches a mindset that enables individuals to constantly evolve and make the next right decision over the long term. It's not a quick fix. It's playing the long game. And that's what brings me to the next step in system change. It's got to be radical collaboration. You've heard it from some of our other speakers. It's what we need to create the food systems of the future. We know we must build deeper partnerships and cross-industry networks in pursuit of bold and unconventional solutions. We need to get away from the thinking that some people are right and some people are wrong, and we need to tackle the problems together. What could we collaboratively accomplish? When we gather all the stakeholders, restaurant workers, policymakers, scientists, farmers, producers, and challenge ourselves to discover what we can do together above and beyond what we are already doing on our own, then we will be truly drawing up a transformative agenda. Lisa and the team at Food Nation asked me to share a vision for the future. And the vision we share and nurture at MAD is one of a world in which everyone in hospitality dares to contribute to resilient food. To do this, we need to ensure that hospitality itself is a healthy, profitable, and viable place to work. The case for radical hospitality starts with acknowledging and repairing broken systems in our own industry so we can support change elsewhere. We're at the very beginning of this journey. Denmark made a bold investment to date with in this transformation. And as a result, in the last 30 months, 700 workers in hospitality have become skilled and motivated advocates for making change at home. It's a powerful export product. It shares knowledge, it multiplies potential. And our graduates are already demonstrating the potential and giving evidence to it. I just spoke with an alum who's in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. He's at the helm of a hospital system, the food service of a hospital system that employs 90,000 people. Imagine what happens as he gets rid of the waste bin in those kitchens. In Bangalore, the recipient of a MAD grant, Elizabeth, she's formed a collective and she's connecting people in symposia and she's bringing together politics, hospitality, business, agriculture at all scales to tackle India's toughest food system problems. Closer to home, there's an organization called Zero Foodprint Nordic. They have a partnership similar with restaurants, with farmers, but bringing in consumers as well. And they're all working together to contribute to carbon sequestration. The idea for that organization was born at MAD. And in an old harbor cafeteria on the west coast of Denmark, in a town of 2,518 people, there now exists a tiny, acclaimed fish restaurant because a young chef left MAD Academy with the courage and the leadership skills that she needed to open her own business. Those are the successes I'm proud of and encouraged by for the sake of our food system. When I think about how MAD builds capacity, I don't ever want to lose sight of the humanity at the core of hospitality. Quite simply, joy is at the center of every experience we create. It's why many of us entered the profession, and it's at the center of what customers are after. Simple, everyday joy of having a desire satisfied, of being nourished, of being cooked for. The work of shifting the world toward an ever more sustainable path is going to be a challenge. It's going to feel hard some days, and the work will ask us to wake up, to stretch ourselves, to seek out our own potential and our organization's potential as well. We're going to need hospitality with us because at the end of the day, after that hard work, we're going to want to sit down with a good glass of wine and a comforting dinner. So let's bring joy to the work ahead and let's start creating this future. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Melina. I feel very motivated by your speech. And not least, thank you very much for sharing your vision. I feel confident that the people working in the hospitality could be looked at as crusaders. I like that picture. I think that would be really cool to work with. Yeah. But Melina, and I know you are really rolling out so many different things, and your cases were so inspiring. I just have one question, before you leave today, Melina. So, as I asked William also, if other people, the people joining us here today, would like to take action tomorrow in engaging themselves in this change, what would be your best advice for them to do tomorrow?
If you know someone who works in hospitality, send them to our website. Get that young person to sign up and come to Denmark and to learn right here. And then reflect on where you see your own potential. We all know the spots where we're ignoring just a little bit in our personal or our professional lives, what we can change. Yeah. We know the facts. We know the science. Go ahead and do something tomorrow a little bit different. You get to choose what. Take the responsibility.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Melina. Thank you for being with us today. So So I hope you were all inspired by the good advice from Melina to take action tomorrow. We can all do something. And thank you very much to Melina for joining us here today. So I will change seat now, and I would like to introduce our next two speakers here today. They come from the industry, they are entrepreneurs, and they are from the innovative world. And they are here to share their views on commercial aspects of gastronomy, as well as the research-driven development that benefits both industry and gastronomy. And I'm very pleased to welcome Mette Schacht Færch as an experienced marketeer in the international FMCG industry. And today, Mette is the Senior Director, Marketing and Innovation at Danish Crown Foods, one of the world's largest exporters and one of Europe's largest producer of pork, as well as the largest European supplier of organic pork and beef, and also the largest meat processing company in Europe. Also in this session, we have with us Claus Meyer, who is newly appointed professor at the Technological University of Denmark, and also he is a gastronomic innovator with a large number of national and international ambitious initiatives behind him, and one of the most important voices in the terms of driving innovation and sustainability within the food arena. So in 2004, Claus was also the initiator of the New Nordic Food Manifesto, which has highly impacted the world's gastronomic scene, and Claus is also the co-founder of the restaurant Noma. So welcome both of you, Mette and Claus. I am very pleased that you are with us today. And good to see you here in the studio.
Thanks for having me and us.
Yeah, thank you. So I have one kick-off question for both of you, just to fly in on the discussion. So the agri-food sector, we have already heard a lot of good examples, have already put new measures and trying to work with them, trying to apply them in different parts of the value chain. But I would like you to zoom in on how cooperation between industry, academia, and gastronomy can be a key to achieve success with sustainable development and business at the same time. I would like you to give a few perspectives on that. I know it's a huge question.
Ladies first.
Ladies first, Mette.
Thank you very much. Let's just zoom in on industry versus gastronomy. I think in Danish Crown we have a long history of working together with top chefs around the world, and also here in Denmark. It helps us to stay on the forefront of what happens in the gastronomic scene, and we can apply that in product development, but also in inspiring consumers to make change. And we've worked with chefs for many years. One of the initiatives that we are proud of in Danish Crown is an initiative which is called the Gold Room or the Vault. An initiative where we got together with chefs. At the time, they looked at us as a company, a big industry giant that wouldn't have anything, unique and interesting for the restaurants. And we got together, and through that, we created a special department that now custom makes products for restaurants. Especially here in Denmark, everything tailor-made and to order. And I think through that, we've also seen some of the changes that are happening in the gastronomic scene these years. More plant-rich diets, fantastic vegetarian restaurants coming up, and we also see how meat has a changing role on the plate. And we see how gastronomy can help us inspire consumers to make change in their diet, in their lives, to balance eating meat and eating more plant-based.
We will get back to that, Mette. I'm just very curious. I just want to, can you do very shortly, what initiated your collaboration with the gastronomy world at the first place to create this gold room?
I think it was a challenge because the chefs basically told us, we don't think you have anything of interest that can go on the menus in top restaurants. And we felt that cannot be true.
Okay.
So we got together and we started collaborating with the chefs, and they started experimenting and creating new types of meat that could go on the menus of top restaurants. And I think that has been really inspirational for us. And today we're continuing to apply that in many different ways.
So a good challenge. A good challenge.
It was
that's always.
It was a balance between an insult and a challenge. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much, Mette. So Klaus.
I can answer the same question.
Yes, can you do that?
I can try.
What is your perspective on it?
Well, I think, and that is also what you kind of is alluding to, I think it's fair to say that in Denmark for way too long, researchers from the universities and commercial people or product developers from the food industries have been left alone in the room. And when these guys are together without an independent persona as the chef, who has no problem standing up for deliciousness as well as a consideration for nature, then what we've seen in Denmark for almost 100 years has been that quality has been driven down, and the respect for nature has been sacrificed in the interest of basically providing the world with even cheaper, more kind of random or uniform products of a pretty low standard. So I totally can confirm that something magical happens when a great chef is brought into this equation. Where I actually, you bring me back to the moment during the Nordic Kitchen Symposium in 2004 that you talked about when Peter Tuborg, the CEO of Arla, was on the stage. And we were many chefs who were kind of frustrated by the fact that even though Denmark has such a long and rich dairy history, somehow an evil alliance between scientists and lawmakers and companies had created a paradigm that it was very risky and impossible for dairy in Denmark to make raw milk cheese, even though raw milk cheese, preserves or kind of allows for the cheese to develop its full potential, allows for the farmer to be properly remunerated for taking well care of the cow and the landscape. So somehow this iron grip prevented Denmark for taking part in the global conversation in the Champion League of cheese. And then we challenged Peter Tuborg and said, Peter, can you do us one little thing? I mean, in your vast empire, can you just make the smallest production of the most incredible magnitude in terms of beauty? Raw milk cheese, selected from chosen cows, it can only be 5 kilos a week. That's okay, as long as you just get dirt on your feet. And then he actually said yes.
So that was a challenge.
It was a challenge, but I think it led to a similar, I think it's called Arla Unica. Yeah. We had the same thing with Carlsberg. Yeah. Carlsberg, beer was reduced to lager in Denmark 20 years ago.
So it's like William Drew told us earlier today, we need to be brave. We need to kind of challenge ourselves. And this is
the best we can be.
example.
Be an example for the unborn, for the grandchildren. Yeah. But Peter Tuborg said he actually wanted to do something amazing in the light of eternity.
Yeah, and that's brave. So I'm just curious again, Klaus.
Of course, the problem is you're beaten up by shareholders. Yeah. The shareholders want short-term profit, and that is not always compatible with a more nuanced idea of what true value creation is about.
So we jump on.
If I may jump in, because I think that's where both Arla and Danish Crown differ a little bit, because we're not owned by shareholders, we're owned by the Danish farmers. We're a cooperative, so everything we do for the benefit of farmers, allowing them to pass on their farms to the next generation. So I think there's a slightly different business model, and that business model, that ownership of the total value chain, is actually what enables us as companies, Danish Crown in particular, to drive that sustainability transformation that is really key to creating the change that we need. Simply because we are in control from farm to fork, and that helps a lot.
Let's just follow up on that, Mette. What does your owners then say, the farmers that you're talking about? How do they How do they kind of work with this area?
They are definitely embracing the change. I think we haven't thrown a challenge at the farmers that they haven't taken in the past 20 years. That's what's made us one of the largest organic producers in the world. And they're also embracing this change. They definitely see the benefit of working with sustainability. We have in Danish Crown a program called the Climate Track. It's a farmer program. It's audited by a third party, but this is where the farmers make plans to create changes on the farm to become more sustainable. So they are really embracing the change, and I think coming from a corporation, that makes me really proud.
Really important to look at that whole value chain. Claus, just to jump into this today, I mean, there's a huge step, so much has happened since 2004, and now you're also a professor at DTU, so you are among the science group of people. What will be the responsibility from the science side to take us to the next level?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that the pork farmers are facing probably the biggest challenge of their time, and also of the pure nature of being a pork farmer, because apparently we need to find a way to cut down on consumption of meat, no matter how organic it is, because it is so costly for nature to send the vegetables through the stomach of the animals rather than having people consume the vegetables themselves. Where that equation, how much meat, how much vegetables, it's a very big question we cannot embark on here, I think. But I mean, this appointment is not that from one day to another I became the biggest scientist in the world, but of course I have a certain knowledge about fermentation, and I have a certain ease when it comes to bringing people together, and I mean, DTU, a lot of interesting research within the area of working with fungi is occurring. And one of the things that I have done this short into my time as a professor there is to collaborate with a professor in microbiology in order to turn upcycled vegetables into a new food item through fungi-based fermentation, something that potentially can compete with meat on the plate. But I've spent 2 long days meeting 20 research groups within the next 14 days, and then I will see how I and my company can be of service to them, and how we could maybe benefit from what they're doing. So it's to be investigated.
I kind of noticed you mentioned the fungi, so we'll get to know more. I think
there's something interesting in fungi. Who knows? Maybe fungi can even improve pork.
Yeah, we will
see. Who knows?
Yeah,
actually, I mean, charcuterie is raw pork improved by the world of microbes, right?
That's right. Yeah,
that is true.
Yeah.
I think just to build on that, because I think this whole transformation that we're seeing right now, consumers wanting to consume less meat, is really interesting, which is also why we in Danish Crown chose to enter into the plant-based market and launched a series of plant-based products as an alternative to all the great meat that we also produce. We believe in providing consumers with an option. If you want to eat meat, we want to be able to supply you with great meat of high quality, with care for animals, and with consideration for our planet. We have a very ambitious sustainability strategy in our company, but we also want to be on the plate when consumers want to eat a plant-based meal or a plant-rich meal. So we're balancing both sides.
It's called for a pig howl.
No, but what I hear you saying, Mette, is also you're kind of asking the consumers to take a stand, as we also heard from Melina. We all need to take action, and then you will be ready to deliver the products.
I think we're embracing change, and we want to be able to serve all kinds of consumers, whether you're looking for an expensive steak or quality pork or organic meat, or even a super easy, convenient ready meal, which we also provide, and now also plant-based. So basically, where the consumer is, that's where we want to be. And that's something that our farmers also embrace.
I just want to touch upon, you mentioned the barriers back in 2004, Claus.
Did I?
Yes, you did. So
what did I say?
You said there was some iron...
the iron grip. Yeah, that was...
the iron grip. So where are the barriers today? where do we need to push to create the next important changes today?
I mean, there's so many places, but I mean, one barrier is that there is a saying that goes like this: for a food item to be sustainable, it has to be eaten. And somehow deliciousness seems to be king. Very few people want to compromise on the organoleptic quality, or I mean, the deliciousness component of their daily meals. And people, it's much easier for the many people to cook meat than it is to produce a wonderful, satisfying, gratifying meal from vegetables. So that is, I mean, take pulses or legumes as they are called. According to the recent dietary recommendations, we're supposed to eat 100 grams of pulses per day, and maybe they're close in Nigeria and even in Italy and Spain, but in Denmark, the reality is that we consume 2 grams of pulses per day. And I think that 19 out of 20 families, they don't know what the hell to do with brown beans or chickpeas or something. I mean, so there's I wouldn't call it a barrier, but there's just a lot of work to do. And it's about very careful, caring communication to bring the many people onto this process of change. It can be done. I don't think it's costly, but it's not about screaming out the dictate from the ivory tower.
Thank you very much. What about you, Mette? If you should kind of highlight, where do you see the barriers?
Well, I definitely agree with Klaus on the pulses. I'm also nowhere near eating the dietary requirements. I think I would.
I'm not even. I mean, I'm not even, but.
But we're trying. We're definitely trying. For me, it's actually willingness to pay among consumers, creating this change, driving sustainability forward is extremely costly. Over the next 5 years, Danish Crown will be investing between 12 and 15 billion Danish kroner in changing our value chain and becoming more sustainable. If we can't get consumers to pay a premium, well, then we can't go in that direction. So basically, we need consumers on board, and we need them to choose the more sustainable solutions when they shop.
So we need some knowledge education among consumers.
I mean, probably there is also, I mean, I know this is also a very big issue, but then the whole question about externalities, that certain food items are priced in a way that is too cheap compared to the true negative impact seen from the perspective of our grandchildren.
Good point.
It's a big topic, but I think that it's a scary place to go for a government, but at some point we need to have food prices that reflect the true cost of each item.
And now you have the opportunity to give one good advice to other business leaders who would like to create change and engage themselves in creating change within this area. Maybe also to engage themselves in the cooperation between industry and gastronomy and science. So Klaus, what would be your good advice?
So male first for the last one.
Male first? Okay.
I said male first.
Male first, yeah.
I mean, one very simple approach that has worked for me in those of my life, those moments where I've actually have been in a place where I could do something truly generous and courageous. I have asked myself in those moments, if I was not a slave of my inbox, or if I wasn't, about to carry out all kinds of strange plans I created in the past, what if the world was fresh and I had no obligations? What would be the most incredible and awesome and truly wonderful thing I could do in the world for the world, with the knowledge I have, with the resources I have around me, with the network that I am part of, on a blank sheet? The most incredible thing that my grandchildren would be so proud of. And that somehow can lead to new perspectives, new ideas that can kind of be an answer to your question.
So that's what we need to do.
That's a thought process that can be helpful.
Process. Good. Thank you very much, Klaus. And Mette, what would be your
I'll
advice?
go a little more practical, maybe.
Yes.
I think for us, working with gastronomy has been a creative playground. And I think that if you haven't tried this as an industry, dive into working together with top chefs because they can really create a change for you and for your business. I think that requires trust from both sides. If you are part of the industry and you want to invite top chefs in, you need to open up about your product development and really see it as a true corporation. On the other hand, chefs also have to understand where the industry is coming from. We have to make profits, we have to balance demand and supply, etc. But I think most great chefs are also great businessmen, so usually that comes together very nicely. So I guess if you have never tried that kind of cooperation, my advice would just be dive in.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for both of you for being with us today, for sharing your very inspiring advice. And I will just once more thank you, and we will be talking to you again.
Thank you.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us. Okay, and this was really exciting to hear these experiences and actions and good advice, not least, to take action. And now I'm honored to welcome two new guests. They have taken important steps in their companies with sustainability and climate, and today they will share some of the specific ideas and ambitions that they have when they look into the coming years in order to move towards sustainability and healthy food systems. So with us today in this session, we have Mette Orlando, and he is the owner of the restaurant Amass. And Mette has a background from several 2- and 3-star Michelin restaurants, as well as from Noma. And in July 2013, he opened Amass on the waterfront of Copenhagen, a restaurant that indeed has come to prove that modern gastronomy and hospitality can go hand in hand with sustainability. Also, we have Fredrik Nilsson, the CEO of LAKRIDS by BÜLOW, with us today. And Fredrik joined LAKRIDS by BÜLOW in 2017, where he has since accelerated the company's internationalization strategy. The ambition for LAKRIDS by BÜLOW is to teach the world how to love licorice, and at the same time, this company take ambitious steps regarding sustainability. So LAKRIDS by BÜLOW today sells in more than 40 countries and is well away with the ambition of making the world love licorice. So welcome both Fredrik and Mette. Good to have you with us here today.
Thank you.
And it's great that you agreed to discuss this very important topic. So we heard different aspects of how the agriculture and food sector has already set new ambitious targets and worked with them from different perspectives. But I'm very curious now that we are here with you, business people working also in hospitality. I would like your perspective on how gastronomy, the combination of gastronomy and industry can be a key to success, both for business and sustainability at the same time. How can we create both business and sustainability at the same time? Fredrik, would you start?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think business needs to be sustainable. I think overall it's about navigating in a world full of scarcity. All resources are scarce in one way or another. And even though the so-called green agenda is more a theme today than perhaps 50 years ago, it was also a matter of scarcity back then, but perhaps more focused on the economic issues. But today that is a little bit more complex, and there it's just obvious that our consumers, they demand from us a sustainable approach. They demand from us that we are navigating in this in a way that makes it possible to continue to produce our kind of products next year, in 5 years, and in 10 years' time. But also I think it's a matter of being able to navigate in an environment where talent is very scarce. And young people today, again, I mean, from a very functional perspective, even without the idealism, it's just common sense, because young people demand sustainable approaches. And we would not be able to attract the kind of talent that we need in our company if there would not be a very strong focus on this part. It's just to pick some parts of it, but that's why it's crucial to us.
So two really good themes that you bring forward here, for like the resources and the talent, the future. That's really interesting. So Mette, from your perspective.
From my perspective, we need to actually start with the word sustainability. We don't say sustainability that often at the restaurant. We use the word responsibility, and I'll explain later about that. But we need to start with the word sustainability, okay? And we need to really give that word value, okay? Because right now, what's happening across multiple industries is that multiple practices are using this word and throwing it around without any transparency behind it. And you can't say you have a sustainable agenda without laying out that agenda and being transparent for it. Because if you just say you have a sustainable agenda without explaining what that agenda is, you're just using it as a marketing tool. Because most of these companies don't have an agenda, or at least an agenda that is not in line with the goals they're laying out. So first, you need to look at what is sustainability, and how can we, instead of using it to, instead of exploiting the word, we need to actually give it value when we talk about it. So that is one thing we really focus on at the restaurant, being transparent and actually following through with our kind of ambitions and goals and being outright and talking about them. So that's our starting point right there.
So what's most important then in your line of drawing up the sustainability goals for your perspective?
People often ask me if you go out and talk, or we do classes at the restaurant about what we're doing, can you define sustainability in one word? Or I'm sorry, can you define it in one sentence? That's easy. You can go online, Google it, and you can see what it means. But we've spent the last 9 years at the restaurant distilling that word, or distilling the meaning of sustainability into one word, and that's awareness. If you are aware of the impact of a certain action that you're doing, then you have the knowledge to mitigate that impact on the backside. If you are aware of the potential in something that is going to be thrown out. I mean, our whole business model, both with the restaurant and the research space, is built around being aware of the potential of flavor in things that are thought to have no value. So awareness, you have to become aware before you can become sustainable.
Okay, good words. We need to remember that and come back to that. So, Fredrik, I would like to get back to you and the way you kind of work with this area, the way you take responsibility, and also the way you kind of meet the future demands, both on the talent side, but also the future customers. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what, from your side, is the most important next steps for your business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to pick up on what Matt said about being aware and being concrete, because of course there are so many companies saying in 2030 we're going to use no plastic, in 2040 we're going to be CO2 neutral. What does that mean? And I think in general we also tend to complicate the discussion. At least the first steps are no-brainers. I mean, both from a business point of view and from a sustainability point of view, for the lack of better words, because very often it makes perfect business sense. I mean, we had our friends from Amass at the factory a few months back, and it was completely focused on the waste and how we're able to limit the waste. And of course, we all know 1/3 of the food roughly served in this country and in a lot of countries is just being thrown away. And that makes no business sense. And that is something where awareness plays a huge role. I mean, teach your kids to only put the food they're going to eat on your plate, then you're going to buy less food, then you're going to be less impacted by the inflation. And as a matter of fact, the environment is also going to be better off. And I think there's so many low-hanging fruits that make complete sense without necessarily entering into those areas where you need to do hard choices, because they exist, of course, as well. There are going to be some very tough choices to be made that is potentially going to annoy certain consumers, certain different organizations and groups. But I think we're far from there today. And I think it just makes so much sense just to start there. But concretely speaking, right now, we just launched a new series which is packed in glass jars instead of 100% recycled PET. Most people know that glass is initially a little bit worse for the environment, and therefore we put deciliter measurements on those glass jars in order to really encourage people to use the jars again. The lids are a bit more sturdy, so they can go in the dishwasher, and we will be launching a refill concept later on. So that's the balance. Of course, you could say, yeah, but why don't you just sell your products in paper bags to start with? That is the hard choice, but then we probably would sell a bit less, and we also have to accept the business fact that half of our sales roughly are for gifting, and then packaging will play an important role. And then to balance that, we think it's a good thing, because people need to keep their, instead of throwing their old pasta away, they can keep it for the next day. So that's then our way of trying to reduce waste at home and try to make our business work, because it's gift, but also then to have a refill version later on.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have 4 BÜLOW jars in my house that have different things in the fridge.
I need to have one. I can feel that. So, Matt, let's hear a little bit more about your huge experience, about the cross-sectoral experience between gastronomy and industry. What's the most important to be aware of when succeeding?
I think it's definitely within gastronomy. And, you know, as a restaurant operator and owner and being in the industry for the last 25, 30 years, it's so easy to be caught up in your everyday grind of a restaurant and forget to look up, and also to forget to notice the value of what you are doing within your own restaurant. And there are so many things within gastronomy that have great value outside of the restaurant. And we, you know, the pandemic was horrible on every level. But I'm always the glass is half full kind of person. So, you know, we were closed 11 out of 24 months. We were able to really look at what we were doing within the restaurant, mostly with our research space that we were doing, and then identify things that we could then say, okay, how do we take this process that we have developed for the restaurant and then really break it down to a molecular level to understand it, and then take that process, apply it to large-scale food production. So we are out there now engaging with these kind of large-scale food producers, and that alone right there is an important practice, and I didn't know the value of that until we started doing it. You know, at a high-end restaurant like Amass, it is taboo for us to engage with large-scale food producers. That's just, they're over here and we're over here. But over the last definitely 2 years, I've really examined this thought process and tried to understand where it comes from. And it's simple. It comes from ego. 100% it's ego-driven. So as restaurateurs and especially in the high-end kind of genre, we need to reevaluate what our values really are and why we're doing things, and look at the bigger picture than what we are doing within the 4 walls. Because ego in the world is our biggest hurdle for progress. And so we, as chefs, we need to put that ego in our back pocket and start having these conversations with large-scale food producers. I want to have a conversation with Mette.
That's really interesting area to highlight, Matt. I think that's
because it goes down to basically the core of why the world is how it is no one communicates. And everyone is in their camps and they think they know what the other one is thinking, but no one actually knows what anyone is thinking until you actually sit down in front of each other and have a conversation about what's happening. Because on skin level, I don't want to engage with someone that is doing something that is so far removed from what I believe in. But do I really actually know what they're doing? And are they doing anything behind it that I don't know about that is actually cool? And so I'm really trying, and it's a hard mental practice, trust me. It's easy to lash out at someone, but I want to understand the food system as a whole, because it is broken. And until we actually take the time to have conversations and understand it, we're never going to fix it.
Well, thank you very much for highlighting this important barrier. I mean, we need to look at the barriers before we can actually also create change. Yeah. So, Fredrik, we need to take a closer look at, I mean, you have created a lot of change within your time in LAKRIDS. You are on a really interesting journey and incorporating both the joy that we heard about with the confectura and LAKRIDS all over the world. What would be your best advice for other business leaders who would like to engage themselves in creating change and doing business at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, first I just want to pick up on what you said, because I will start with a book advice. It's a book called Ego is the Enemy, written by an author called Ryan Holiday. You might have read it, and I think it explains a lot of things in the world, not only this particular conflict. I would say that, I mean, just say what I said before. I think a lot of change doesn't really demand hard choices. Some of them are just pure no-brainers. It's not an or situation, it's an and situation. I think that's key. And also I want to just highlight how important it is to look outside your immediate peers. I mean, for us, like Amass and Noma and these amazing Danish restaurants, they are for us what couture is for fashion. I mean, they show the direction, and in general that is helping us a lot, and also to stay humble, to find someone to show the way, and then it becomes fairly easy, perhaps not just in your immediate vicinity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you very much, Fredrik. So, Mette, I also am quite curious to ask you to share good advice for other business leaders working in hospitality, maybe, who would like to engage themselves in creating this change, maybe. Yeah. Put away the ego and move forward.
The ego is first step. Yeah. But some lower hanging fruit, because the ego is not lower hanging fruit to put away. It's quite up there. You got to work for it. But you know, if you need to look, it doesn't have. I mean, you said this. It doesn't need to be so complicated. There are so many things that we do at the restaurant that are basic. So we put bottles of water on the table. There's water left in the container. We have our ice baths we have in the kitchen. We have different circulator baths left over. We take that water, we boil it. We use it to wash our floors. It's 90 to 100 liters a day. And you know, Akanto, you pay all your utilities up front, and then whatever you save or spend more, you pay at the end of the year. The first year we did this, 17,000 euro refund. And so that is low-hanging fruit, and it's a business case. So if you need to identify the lowest hanging fruit, because you need a win. Just get a win, because that will motivate you to push forward. And like I said, it doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't be. We do a lot of very complicated things, but we do a lot of really basic things as well. That's great. And so it's the thought process and the mindset to exist, to be able to identify those things and become aware.
I feel very confident by the advice that you're sharing. Both, it's not that complicated, but then at the same time, we need to work with some big egos. So it's a two-sided.
Pick your battles.
Yes, that's right. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So, during this global food talk, we have all been inspired with experiences and advice and actions that can contribute to the green transition with gastronomy as a driver. Naturally, innovation and collaborations are important tools, no matter where in the world you are based. I would like to highlight one thing which stands especially clear to me. We all have responsibility. And we can influence the agenda in a greener direction, even through small initiatives. By changing our own eating habits, by being front runners, and by talking about how we work with green transition in industry and in gastronomy. We can influence and inspire each other and decision makers worldwide to take a stand and initiate action. Therefore, I'm happy to hear about the many good initiatives today from organizations, restaurants, and companies that have worked with sustainable transition for many years and still have high ambitions to increase this further around the world. It's also clear to me that it is of uttermost importance that we realize that we cannot rely on one single solution or quick fix. We need to continuously evolve and develop solutions and products and move forward with collaboration and partnerships. The journey has started, and we will have an important role to play to succeed. Thank you for being with us today. I hope you will join us again later this autumn, and where we will continue our series of global food talks. You can follow the program on Food Nation's SoMe canals and on our website and newsletter. And here you will get the latest news on upcoming events and updates within the agriculture and food sector. It has been a pleasure that you would join us today, and I wish you a very good afternoon, no matter where you are in the world. Thank you very much for your time.